So I want to thank the music team and especially Tom Tarver for the music today and Gloria and I for reading. This is the third week in our series, our 7-week series on Win the Day. And each week is independent, and today we're focusing on Fly the Kite. You may be wondering what Fly the Kite has to do with winning the day. Well, actually, it's about sweating the small stuff. How you go about anything is how you do everything. And making each day a masterpiece. Determining every day what's important for that day. And finally, celebrating the wins. As I've been saying each week, to win the day, we must realize that if we're caught up in the past or living in the future, we can't enjoy today. So this week, we're focusing on how to live in the moment by seeing each day as a masterpiece and celebrating our wins. Imagine what life would be like if we actually realized that every day is a miracle, the way that Einstein talked about in the reading that Gloria did for us. But first, the question of the week. What is the one choice that you can make today to fly the kite, to sweat the small stuff, to celebrate the wins, and to make every day a masterpiece so as to win the day? One more time. What's the one choice that you can make today to fly the kite, to sweat the small stuff, to celebrate the wins, and to make every day a masterpiece so as to win the day? The Fly the Kite title today actually is related to how the bridge was built across Niagara Falls. Way back in 1847, civil engineer Charles Ellet Jr. was commissioned to build a suspension bridge across the gorge of Niagara Falls. And at the time, the only way to cross that was by boat. And even the narrowest part of the gorge was 800 feet across, with 225-foot cliffs on either side. So the first problem to solve was how to get a cable from one side of the gorge to the other. One member of Ellet's team, Theodore Graves Hewlett, suggested a cash prize for a kite flying contest. So in January of 1848, hundreds of kids tried to fly a kite across the gorge. One clever 15-year-old, his name was Homan Walsh, took the ferry across to the Canadian side. He could take advantage of the prevailing winds. His kite string broke while he was flying it, and then he waited the 8 days to get back across. He repaired his kite and again took the ferry across, this time successfully flying his kite and landing it on the other side of the gorge. Now, what happened next was really amazing. The engineers took that kite string and attached a slightly heavier string to it and pulled it across. Now there was a slightly heavier string crossing the gorge. They continued to do this until they got to the point where they could take a rope across the gorge. And at some point they were actually able to have a cable that was 36 strands of gauge wire going across the gorge. They had discovered how to get that cable across the gorge. The Buffalo Daily Courier reported this: "We have this day joined Canada with the United States by a cord half an inch in diameter." The footbridge was built by June of 1948, and the impact of that bridge is still seen to this day. But the point is that this started by flying a kite. The quote of the week was a quote from Martin Luther King Jr., and it's about how to sweat the small stuff. Essentially, this is what Martin Luther King said. If it falls your lot to sweep streets in life, sweep streets like Michelangelo painted pictures. Sweep streets like Beethoven composed music. Sweep streets like Shakespeare wrote poetry. Sweep streets so well that all the heavens and the earth will have to pause and say, "Here lived a great street sweeper who swept his job well." There's an ancient tale about 3 bricklayers who were building a cathedral. And someone came up and asked a bricklayer, "What are you doing?" Well, the first one said, "I'm laying bricks." And the second one said, "I'm building a wall." The third bricklayer said, "I'm constructing a cathedral to the glory of God." Now, which of those bricklayers do you think was really enjoying their work and getting the most out of it? The third one was laying bricks like Michelangelo painted pictures. How we do anything is how we do everything. So it's important that we do sweat the small stuff, that we make certain that we are moving through our days constructing cathedrals of our own making to the glory of God. When we're intrinsically motivated, in other words, when we're not concerned with what other people are thinking and we're not trying to compare ourselves to other people, we're merely being who we are and doing what we know we do best, that's when we win the day. We sweat the small stuff for the right reasons. We do everything that we do from that same sense of inward need to sweep our streets to the best of our own ability, to use all the gifts that God gave us to the fullest. And even when we might be feeling defeated or broken down by something going on in our lives, we keep moving on. There's a beautiful 400-year-old technique in Japan for repairing broken pottery. It's called kintsugi. This Japanese art puts broken pottery back together with gold. And it's built on the idea that by embracing flaws and imperfections, you can create something that's even stronger and more beautiful than the original piece of art. Each break is unique, and instead of repairing an item like new, kintsugi actually highlights the flaws with the gold and creates a beautiful design because the gold shows through the cracks. You know, this is a metaphor, I think, for when we heal ourselves and for those things that we go through and we've managed to repair in some way. This process actually allows us to come out on the other side, having repaired ourselves, having replaced those broken parts of us, and become something even more unique, more beautiful, more resilient, more golden. In this section of the book, Batterson tells a story about Coach John Wooden, who on his 100th birthday shared this bit of wisdom: make each day a masterpiece. Now, when Coach Wooden would face a new group of All-American high school recruits in the locker room, he would begin his speech this way: "Men, this is how you put on your shoes and socks." And he would continue to relate to the young men how to put on socks so that they had no creases and no wrinkles, how to tie their shoelaces just exactly properly, and even how to tuck in their jerseys and how to knot their shorts. Woodman's philosophy was this: how you do anything is how you do everything. Consequently, how you practice is how you play the game. This seems to be so true in life. How we go through our days impacts how we feel at the end of the day and whether or not we feel defeated or elated over how we spend our time in the day. There's a century-old proverb which I think kind of sums it up. For want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of a horse, the rider was lost. For want of a rider, the message was lost. For want of a message, the battle was lost. For want of a battle, the kingdom was lost. And all for the want of a horseshoe nail. Batterson sums that old proverb up by saying, the devil is not in the details, God is. When we think about the book of Genesis, we remember that phrase that Gloria said in the reading. The day of creation in Genesis was a masterpiece, was it not? And God rested and called things good. And on the sixth day, he even said it was very good. Can we not see our days as masterpieces? Last week when we were talking about Eat the Frog, I said that if you want God to do the super, you have to do the natural. We have to do the things that are natural, that are ours to do. And when learning to fly a kite, Batterson writes, if you do little things like they're big things, God will do big things like they're little things. Batterson mentions the book of Exodus and describes the flight of the Israelites out of Egypt into the promised land. Now, it should actually take about 11 days to walk from Egypt to the place that was the promised land. But the Bible describes it as a 40-year journey. So keep that in mind for just a moment. Because I just talked about the Japanese art of kintsugi, and I want to give you another Japanese word. It's kaizen. Kaizen means change for the better or continuous improvement. In Japan, it's about having uncompromised commitment to continuous improvement. The Japanese business philosophy is about processes that continuously improve operations, and they involve all the employees from the lowest employee all the way up to the CEO. The important thing here is that Kaizen is about productivity and about it happening in a gradual and methodical process. And frankly, I believe that's how the divine sees us as well. God delivers us to our destiny in gradual and methodical ways. It's a process that the Israelite journey was using. The Israelites took 40 years to make an 11-day trip. It was happening little by little in a gradual way. And just because the walk to the promised land could have taken only 11 days, it didn't mean that it was necessarily right for it to take 11 days. God grows us little by little. And that 40 years in the desert was required to learn lessons that were going to be useful later in life and later in the lives of other Israelites. In fact, Batterson uses this formula. Deliberate practice plus desirable difficulty equals durable learning. Deliberate practice plus desirable difficulty equals durable learning. So let's begin with that deliberate practice part of the equation. There was an ancient group of archers who belonged to the Benjamite tribe, and they easily could shoot arrows and sling stones with both hands. equally as well with the left hand as with the right. Now, only 1% of the people that are born are ambidextrous. So I'm certain that this did not come naturally to all of these archers. It required quite a bit of deliberate practice of them practicing with their non-dominant hand so that they could indeed throw the stones and shoot the arrows equally from both hands. Now that's deliberate practice. The next thing in the equation is desirable difficulty. I know for myself, if something is too easy, I can get bored with it right away. And if it's way too difficult, I'm going to feel like walking away because there's no sense in trying if I know I'm never going to succeed. I just recently signed up for the e-gym circuit at the Y. And when you begin using the machine, they have this visual on the screen that contains dots that go up and down. And the point is, as you're exercising, you're supposed to follow the dots. Well, it seems easy enough. And if you do follow the dots, it's the optimum way to use the machine and to get the most out of it. Well, I watched some people following the dots and they made it look pretty easy. So I got on the machine and lo and behold, it's not nearly as easy as it looks. So I've done it 3 times now, and my scores, well, let's just say they leave a little bit to be desired between the 0 and 100 mark. This is an example of desirable difficulty, however, because what I know is that as I work at it, my scores are going to go up and I'll get better at being able to follow the dots throughout the exercise process. Now, if it had been lifting 100 pounds, I know that's impossible for me. Not only because 100 pounds is a lot of weight, but because I've had 3 back surgeries and it wouldn't exactly be a great idea for me to be lifting that much weight. I'm supposed to not wear heels and not get on a sitting rowing machine and carry a purse that's less than 5 pounds. Well, hey, 2 out of 3 isn't bad. My purse is not less than 5 pounds. I would like to say it is, but I cheat on that one. The point here is with difficulty levels, it's important to find for yourself that sweet spot where it's a bit of a challenge for you, but not so much of a challenge that you're going to get discouraged and give up. If I'm going to fly a kite, what I know is that I want a kite that's got enough lift that I don't have to run like a 10-year-old to get it up in the air. And then I want it to be able to stay up in the air long enough for me to enjoy the fact that it's flying. I'm sure that there's something in your life that you have been looking at, and maybe you just have to figure out what is the desirable difficulty for that thing in your life. Where's your sweet spot? Margaret Thatcher said it really well. Look at the day when you are supremely satisfied at the end. It's not a day when you lounged around doing nothing. It's a day you had everything to do and you've done it. Desirable difficulty tasks require considerable effort. The difficulty slows us down and we learn from the process. If I had sat down at those e-gym circuit machines and accomplished following the dots the very first time, I would have wondered if there was any benefit in me doing the exercises at all. The fact that there was a level of difficulty involved with it encouraged me to know that there was something to be gained by practicing. Batterson calls these stretch goals. The goals that we have to practice in order to be able to accomplish something. And I'm certain that once I've accomplished following all the dots at the particular level that I'm on, it'll be time for me to move to a different level of difficulty on those same machines. It's a little by little approach to going from strength to strength. I doubt that those archers were able to throw with their non-dominant hand just as easily as they could do the throwing with their dominant hand the first time they tried. But they continued to practice, and little by little, they got as good with their non-dominant hand as they were with their dominant one. For me at the moment, my E-gem is my Kaizen. Those little dots are my feedback loop because they provide me data on how to improve. There's an acronym, SWOT, that provides feedback where we look at our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and our threats. List these for yourself and then define your win and decide what is important today. Commit yourself to Kaizen. Set your own stretch goals. Make decisions each day to strengthen yourself, to eliminate your weaknesses, to take advantage of the opportunities, and to overcome any threats. Define your win. Recognize the masterpiece of the day. Fly your kite. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't go over the third point that I made at the beginning of the talk, and that was celebrate the wins. I think that it's important that we celebrate the things that we accomplish. I can only imagine that Hosen Walsh celebrated receiving that $10 for flying his kite successfully across the Niagara Falls Gorge. And I know that I plan to celebrate on the day when at the E-gym, I get all of those circuit machines above a 90 on my little following the dots. Celebrating helps us remind ourselves that we're moving forward. It ingrains a certain type of deliberate learning that is what we get from practicing with a desirable difficulty. And it associates with that learning something that's really positive. So when you're creating a goal for yourself, at the same time, determine how you're going to celebrate that win. Celebrations actually help solidify the effort we put into something. And it allows us to recognize the benefit of having done it. That way, we can really see the masterpiece of that day when we actually accomplished our goal. You know, the Oscars just took place last weekend, and I bet that everyone that received an Oscar was out celebrating their accomplishments. Our accomplishments do not need to be so big or so very public for that matter. For myself, I tend to sometimes be better at beating myself over the things I didn't do than celebrating the ones that I did and things I did right. For a long time, I focused on how poor the quality of our online Sunday messages were, rather than focusing on the win that we actually accomplished, being able to stay in communication with the congregants. And while I'm getting better at that, I encourage each of you to define how to celebrate any accomplishment that you've made. Celebrate those wins. Let's face it, flying a kite includes the pleasure of seeing the kite up there in the air, just soaring. So if you're going to fly a kite, recognize the masterpiece of the day. How you might celebrate putting in that deliberate practice at some desirable difficulty so that you can embrace durable learning. So in summary, I invite you to notice how you are flying your kite. Sweat the small stuff. Remember that how you do anything is how you do everything. Do what is yours to do, like Michelangelo painted paintings. Construct your own cathedral to the glory of God. And if something falls apart or breaks in some way, use kintsugi to fix those cracks and build those flaws into something that's even more beautiful. And then make each day a masterpiece. Remember Kaizen. God grows us little by little. He delivers us to our destiny in a gradual and methodical way. Deliberate practice plus desirable difficulty equals durable learning. And finally, celebrate the wins. Remember the durable learning by celebrating it and creating a positive energy around your accomplishments. So here's your affirmation for the week. How is it today? I so easily and willingly make the one choice to fly the kite, to sweat the small stuff, to celebrate the wins, and to make every day a masterpiece so as to win the day. Now go fly your kite. Remember to challenge yourself this week by constructing your own cathedral to the glory of God. Celebrate all that you do and all who you are. And don't forget Kaizen, that gradual and consistent process of improvement. Or kintsugi, making the flaws into something that is even more beautiful and golden. So let's pray. Taking a deep, nourishing breath and just recognizing right here in this very moment that divine higher self, that divine being, that place within you that you know something that is a higher power exists. That power, that wisdom, that glory, that love, that peace, that ease, that grace that God is. All that is flowing in, through, and as you as an individual expression of the divine. Little by little, you stepping into all that you are and all that you're meant to be. And what I know to be the truth is that today each of us are figuring out what is our kite to fly? What is our purpose? Where is it in our lives that we can strive for something? We can sweat the small stuff. We can do something small in a wonderful way. And I'm grateful. I'm actually grateful that God is growing me little by little. And I know that there's this gradual process for improvement. I know that there's still things that I have to learn. And I know that to be the truth of everyone on this planet. If we're still breathing, we still have things to learn. So I am so grateful. I'm grateful for that, knowing that right where I am, God is. And it's from that gratitude that I release these words into the law of mind, spirit, and action. Because I know the truth. God has already called it good. So I can just say amen. And we can affirm it together. And so it is.